Oak, you ever have one of those moments when you realize life just pulled the ultimate plot twist on the people who least deserved it? Yeah, that was our moment. Picture this. My wife and I had barely unloaded half our moving boxes when flashing red and blue lights filled the cul-de-sac. The HOA president, a woman named Karen, because of course she had called 911. Her claim: suspicious individuals trespassing in the neighborhood. But 20 minutes later, while she stood on the curb, arms crossed and smirking like she owned the world, my wife calmly stepped out of our new home in her tailored suit, holding a thick envelope that would make Karen's face drain of color. You see, Karen had no idea who she'd just picked a fight with, and that envelope, it wasn't just paperwork. It was Karen's eviction notice. The day started like any other new beginning, full of hope, coffee, and the sound of cardboard boxes scraping against the driveway. After years of saving, dreaming, and planning, we had finally bought our dream home. A tidy two-story brick house in a quiet, suburban neighborhood, lined with oak trees and neatly trimmed lawns. It should have been perfect. But the moment we pulled into the driveway, I felt it. That heavy, judgmental stare that cuts through your excitement like a knife. Across the street, standing with her hands on her hips, was a woman who looked like she had personally invented disapproval. Short, platinum hair, oversized sunglasses, and a clipboard in hand. Like she was auditioning to be the final boss of all suburban villains. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she called out, her tone dripping with sarcasm before we even said a word. I smiled anyway. "Hi there. We're just getting settled in. I'm Daniel, and this is my wife, Maya." She tilted her head, eyes narrowing. I wasn't informed of any new homeowners. The HOA requires notification of all sales and new residents before move-in. "Who's your realtor?" Maya, who had just stepped out of the moving van, gave her a polite but firm smile. "We handled the closing directly with the bank. Everything's fully approved and recorded. You'll probably get the notice soon." That's when the woman's expression shifted from annoyance to something more hostile. She looked us up and down, clearly trying to process what kind of people had dared to move into her perfect neighborhood. You see, my wife is a brilliant black woman, a real estate attorney with the calm confidence of someone who's been underestimated her whole life. And I, her very ordinary husband, was about to watch her handle the most absurd battle of our married life. It didn't take long for things to go wrong. While we unloaded boxes, a police cruiser pulled up. Two officers stepped out, hands near their belts but not drawn. "We received a report of a possible break-in," one said carefully. I blinked. "A break-in? We live here." Karen strutted across the street, smug as ever. "That's them, officer. I've never seen them before. This is a private community, and I take safety seriously. They wouldn't tell me who their realtor was." My heart pounded with a mix of shock and anger. Before I could respond, Maya stepped forward, cool as ice. "Officers," she said, reaching into her handbag. "Here's the deed, our closing statement, and my driver's license." The cops glanced at the papers, then at each other. One of them nodded apologetically. "Looks like everything's in order, ma'am. Sorry for the trouble." Karen's jaw clenched. "This isn't how things are done here," she hissed. "You can't just move in without HOA approval." That's when Maya's expression changed. A quiet, powerful kind of calm washed over her face. The same look she wore in court when she knew the other side had just walked into a trap. "Oh, I think you'll find," she said softly, "that we can. In fact, you might want to check your mailbox in about 20 minutes. Karen frowned, confused. But Maya didn't explain. She simply turned back to me and said, "Let's finish unpacking, babe." 20 minutes later, while Karen was still huffing and pacing, a courier walked up to her porch and handed her a thick envelope. She tore it open, her eyes darting over the words before she froze in stunned silence, because inside that envelope wasn't a welcome notice. It was a legal notice of HOA violation and pending eviction proceedings. And it was signed by none other than attorney Maya Collins, the new legal owner of the property and acting HOA compliance officer. Karen had just called the cops on her new boss. For the next few minutes, the entire street felt frozen in disbelief. Karen just stood there on her front porch, the thick envelope trembling in her hand. Her face went from red to pale to something between the two. The kind of look you get when the world suddenly flips upside down. I could almost hear the gears grinding in her head as she tried to process what had just happened. Just 20 minutes ago, she had called 911 on us, smugly convinced she was protecting her neighborhood. Now she was realizing she had just handed the police her own humiliation. In front of everyone. A few curious neighbors peeked out through their blinds. One older couple across the street even came out, pretending to water their flowers while clearly trying to eavesdrop. Everyone knew who Karen was. She was the self-appointed queen of the HOA, the woman who sent warning letters if your grass grew half an inch too long or if your Christmas lights stayed up past January. Nobody dared challenge her. Until now. Maya didn't say a word. She just kept unpacking boxes, her calm energy cutting through the tension like sunlight through fog. I wanted to ask her what exactly was in that envelope, but something in her composure told me to let her handle it her way. Eventually, Karen stormed across the street again, the papers clutched in her manicured hand. "What is this supposed to mean?" she demanded, waving the envelope at Maya. "You can't just evict me! I've lived here for 15 years!" Maya looked up slowly, meeting her glare with the kind of calm authority that could silence a courtroom. "Actually," she said evenly, "the bank has been trying to contact you for months about unpaid HOA fees and violations. When the HOA's original management company dissolved, your property fell under a new holding group for restructuring, a group that I happen to represent. The board voted to replace the old management with my firm last week." Karen blinked, lost. "What are you talking about?" "I am the O." Maya smiled softly. "Not anymore?" It turned out that during our house hunting process, Maya had discovered something strange. This particular HOA had been running on outdated bylaws and improper filings for years. The previous treasurer had quietly retired, and the association had failed to renew its charter. That meant the HOA technically had no legal authority until it was properly reinstated. So, Maya being Maya, had taken it upon herself to re-register the HOA. And as the first legal homeowner to do so, she became the acting compliance officer by default. In other words, while Karen was busy making everyone else's lives miserable, Maya had legally become her superior. Karen's bluster started to crumble. "You can't do this. You can't own the HOA." "I don't own it," Maya said gently. "I just made it fair again. Everyone here deserves peace. Not harassment. You've fined people for the color of their shutters, called cops on teenagers walking home, and sent threats to elderly residents over flower pots. It ends now. I swear." For a moment, even the wind stopped blowing. Karen opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her voice cracked when she finally managed. "You can't kick me out of my home." Maya sighed, her tone softer now. "You're not being evicted from your house, Karen. The notice is for your position as HOA president. You're being removed due to multiple violations and misuse of authority. You'll stay in your home, if you choose to. But from now on, this neighborhood will be managed fairly." The strength left Karen's shoulders. For the first time, she didn't look angry. She looked small. Like someone who had finally realized how much damage she'd done, not just to others, but to herself. "I was just trying to keep things in order," she muttered. "Make sure it stayed nice here." Maya gave a faint smile. "There's a difference between order and control. You can't build a community by tearing people down." The officers, who had lingered nearby out of caution, gave Maya a respectful nod before driving away. The neighbors who had been watching slowly started to clap. A quiet, hesitant ripple that turned into real applause, not because they enjoyed the drama, but because for once, someone had stood up for them. That night as the sun dipped below the horizon, Maya and I sat on our porch sipping tea. The neighborhood was calm. No police lights. No shouting. Just peace. The kind we'd been hoping for when we bought this house. I didn't plan it to go down that way, Maya said softly. I just wanted her to understand that power means responsibility, not privilege. I looked at her, proud beyond words. You didn't just move into this neighborhood, I said. You changed it. She smiled, leaning her head against my shoulder. Sometimes, she whispered, you have to show people what real leadership looks like. Not through anger, action. And from that day on, the street felt different. Friendlier. Neighbors waved again. The constant stream of warning letters stopped. Even Karen, after some time, began to soften. She started volunteering at local events, even baked cookies for the next block party. Turns out, sometimes the people who cause the most trouble are the ones who just need a reason and a chance to do better. Because real change doesn't come from tearing others down. It comes from standing tall when it's hardest and showing the world what grace under fire really looks like.